Keith, how are you, my man? I think I have the things all set up so that only you are able to be seen. How did I do that?
I only see you.
Really? What do people see right now?
That's the real question.
I still don't even see us live on YouTube yet.
I just see you. I see your face on there.
What the- How do I change that?
Oh, okay. It switches back and forth based on
Who's
who's talking.
talking? Okay. Well, people, what's going on, people? We're trying to sort this out. I don't even know how I did that. Let's,
With it, everybody.
how's it going? Say what up to people in the chat while I try to sort this out. I don't even know how I did that.
I see what up, Clip Cult. Yo, Dave Washington. What
There we go.
it do? Time for class, Derek. Let's go. Yes, sir.
What's going on, people? Welcome, welcome. Dave, appreciate you having you back. What's going on? You live? Just see one person. Yes, sorry, Rob. That was my fault. You guys are swapping back and forth. My bad, Dave. I know he was recently living in Bangkok. Yes, he was. What's going on, people? Appreciate having you here. So, Keith, first of all, I think you've already told me how you're doing today, but I'll ask again. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic. Today's the best day of my life, Ben. How you doing?
Today is the best day of my life too, Keith, and I'm glad to hear it is the same for you. Today we're talking about the Clarity Act, which is a very, very big deal in the world of crypto. And so I'm excited to go through it with you and then also hear the opinions of the chat as we do.
Oh yeah. I'm super curious to see what everyone else is thinking about all the hoopla that's been going on. Yeah, we've obviously had this being something that has been on the agenda for about a year now, trying to figure out if we're going to get proper legislation in place to regulate the entire crypto market industry. I say for the past year, but we've
It's
wanted
been a
this
long
for
time.
many years. Yeah.
This has really kind of been the end game for a long time for most of the crypto community. Most of the conspiracy theories or the why this is going to be worth so much was for this right here,
Mhm.
which is super interesting.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that it's really here. It's really being discussed. It's really almost on the actual table to get voted on. So um, here we are, man. Here we are.
So where should we start with all this stuff? Because there's a lot to talk about. There's also a lot of power structures out here that are trying to dictate where things go, how they get put into law and all this stuff. So it's a very big deal.
Yeah. So right now, obviously, the biggest thing that's happening here is you're having a little bit of a back and forth between the crypto industry and the big banks, right? The big banks have apparently infiltrated, right, on the bill, the most recent version of the
Shocker.
bill, and people are calling it out for what it is. The big thing that is up for discussion that people are really trying to figure out is the idea of stablecoin issuers being able to offer yield to the holders of the stablecoins. And this is massive because, well, it's a big part of the whole banking business model. The whole banking business model is net interest margins. Go
Can you
ahead.
explain what giving yield means? Because I know we
Yeah,
throw
yeah,
this out, but I think a lot of people are like, okay, buzzword, right?
yeah. So when you go to the bank, right, you deposit your money at the bank. The bank is going to take that money and they're going to issue loans, right? Now, obviously, when they do that, they're not really taking your money and issuing it out. They actually are creating money when they do that. It used to be more that, yeah, your money would actually get loaned out. Now, um, just stick with me on that idea. You give the bank your money, they loan that money out. Okay, cool. Now, um, that money's going to be loaned out, but it also could be used to buy bonds or buy treasuries. Okay. So when a bank goes out and buys treasuries, US treasuries are bonds from the United States government. They pay a yield, they pay an interest rate. So the bank's taking your money. Okay. They're going to take that money, they're going to buy something that generates yield, earns interest, and then they're going to take some of that interest that they're earning on these treasuries and they're going to pay some of it to you. But in reality, today, the amount of interest that the bank is paying to you on a savings account is extremely low. It's like less than 1%. But when we look at the federal funds rate, right, that's at 350 basis points, right? So 3.5%. So where's that delta, right? Where's all that money going? Well, that's the bank's profit margin. Okay. So when it comes to stable coins, it's a slightly different scenario, right? You're taking your money and you're buying a stable coin. That stable coin exists on a blockchain and it has technological features that you wouldn't necessarily have if you put your money in the bank, right? You can't use the blockchain with your banking system, not today. And so There's a trade-off in that though. Right now, these stablecoin issuers aren't necessarily paying you a yield on that, not the stablecoin issuers. You might see Coinbase, okay, allowing you to get some yield on your USDC. Okay, but we'll come back to that because this is why this uh, recent markup of the bill has been such an issue. But so, all right, stablecoin issuers want to be able to pay out the yield. Okay, let me back up. So you give your money to the stablecoin issuer. The stablecoin issuer is going to take that money and they're going to go buy US treasuries as well, just like a bank would. But the yield that they're earning on those treasuries is not getting paid to you at all. But the stablecoin issuer, right? Because it's their entire business, right? Banks offer all different kinds of products. They got all the different types of things that they're doing, different infrastructure, technology, this and that. But for the stablecoin issuer, it's actually not the only thing that they're doing is buying treasuries with your money. So because of that, they can offer all of that money is just pure profit to them, right? That they're earning on these treasuries that they're not paying out. So they could pay up to 300 basis points
Mhm.
and that'd be just fine. But for the bank, they can't just pay out 300 basis points on the 350 that they're earning. That's going to put them out of business. Okay. So when you think about for a bank, the final thing I'll say here, like a bank wants deposits, right? That's pretty much how they're going to make money. The more money that they have in deposits, the more money they're going to make. So, what do banks do to increase their deposits? They'll usually have that lever of how much am I going to pay, right, out on the yield that I'm already generating versus the federal funds rate, which is the risk free rate that every bank has access to. So, at 350 basis points today, uh, if I'm paying 50 basis points or 0.5%, well, I can up that to 0.6%. And then JP Morgan and Bank of America can battle it out and go up, zero point 0.7 or 0.8%, or I'll pay 0.9%. And then depositors will choose where to put their money based upon that. So, anyways, um, if all of a sudden there's a new participant in the game and they can pay 300 basis points, right? Then that just
Why would you
completely
go
eliminates
anywhere
that
else?
business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the
It's a
that's the big issue.
that's like the biggest point of contention that they keep going back and forth on. And I saw a comment here that I thought was worth highlighting here. Where is it? It's about Armstrong. Yeah, right here from Cross Central. Always appreciate your awesome comments. So, what's interesting is that Brian Armstrong, which is the founder of Coinbase, spoke out against the current structure of the bill, but their top shareholders are BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. And so it's hard to tell if it's genuine or not. In reading that, Keith, what do you feel and think?
I really haven't thought about that reality. There's top shareholders are BlackRock. I mean, listen, when it comes to BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard being the top shareholders, it's like, yes, that's true because of the record of ownership, but these are managed funds, right? So it's not like BlackRock legitimately owns them fully. Um, so that's one thing to keep in mind. But the big thing that Brian Armstrong is saying here is, and this is, by the way, guys, this is not an easy topic. Okay. So I wanna talk about this fully real quick because if these banks do have to compete with stablecoin issuers, and these stablecoin issuers can offer, let's just imagine 300 out of 350 basis points, that will take money out of the banking system. Okay. And so what the banks are afraid of, the problem that this brings and how they're able to at least act like they care about the consumer is because if money comes out of banks, then they won't have the ability to make loans. Right. And so these smaller banks are like, dude, if you take all of our deposits, I can't lend to small business Bob and Joe over here who's trying to grow their business. Like, you want to put Bob and Joe out of business? They're just trying to run a restaurant down the block. So I mean, that's a real concern too, right? Because stablecoin issuers, that's not their business, right? They're not out here making loans. And that's why, by the way, they're able to kind of have so much room to play around with the yield that they're going to pay out. Um, because they're only lending to the US government, which is risk-free rates. But a bank, they've got a lot of risks that they're taking on when they're making all these different types of loans to people. So they got to be able to cover that. So point being, I think Brian Armstrong and the entire industry, they want to see a level playing field, but the banks are saying, "But y'all don't play the same by the same rules as us. You're not having to do all of the banking requirement restrictions that we have. So how are you guys gonna just act like, oh, you want a level playing field? But we're not playing the same game.
Mhm.
So I think it's a fair argument, and I think it's a fair concern of the idea that the money could, like that money won't be going to make loans to people if it's being siphoned out of the banking system in that way.
From
So
them,
yeah, go ahead,
th
say that again.
from them, could we not modernize the approach to lending and the access to capital, though?
Yes, but that needs to happen though, right? Because if it doesn't happen, then you're just gonna immediately take all of the banking deposit. You know, like I'm saying, like if you do this now, right, then people are just gonna not have access to capital potentially, right?
Mhm. Of course.
Because the infrastructure is not there for these stablecoin issuers to do that. Uh, you know what I mean? So it's just not their business yet.
Yeah.
I'm seeing some of the comments. You guys,
Keith for president?
yeah, you guys are nuts.
We should get some shirts, bro.
That's hilarious. Um, so yeah, so BlackRock, Vanguard, I still don't actually fully know the way that that stuff works because the biggest question is, and I'll look this up as we talk. Like when BlackRock owns companies through funds, do they have voting rights? And
Yeah,
I'm
we
sure
looked this
this
up before,
is,
and I
yeah,
believe they do.
yeah. So yeah, you're right. So BlackRock owns shares through its funds. It holds the voting rights and votes on shareholder matters like board elections and executive pay. So that's real. That's real. Uh,
That's also, like, the connection to why everyone was told to buy an S&P 500 index fund. The issuers of those index funds were given so much power through the market wanting those from the guaranteed returns that came along with it, right? And so then when you think of the potential conflicts of interest across the board there, the demise of quality makes a lot of sense.
with the quality of what?
Everything, right? Because like a lot of the times, if you think of decisions that can be made, if you're the primary owner of multiple sectors, there's trickle down impacts of every decision within a company, right? Even indirect companies do dictate consumption habits across different lines of sectors. And so when you're the primary owner of all these different sectors, it gives you the kind of ability to make decisions for profit that is like crazy to think about.
That's fair. I mean, so you're saying like in general, when competition goes down, right,
Yes,
quality goes down.
precisely. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
100%. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be like some evil conspiracy. It just makes sense.
true. Very true. Um, so right now, there's two major sides, right, to this whole debate. You've got all of these banking lobbies, okay, and then you've got the crypto industry and their own lobbies, right? So there's two different things that's being debated upon, by the way. So in the bill, there's can the stablecoin issuers can they provide like passive yields, and then also can they actually provide rewards to the holders, right? So um, incentive based, like action based rewards versus just passive holdings. So, for instance, if you've ever played around with crypto stuff, like a DeFi platform,
Mhm.
you might go and stake on this platform and get a yield,
And they're usually
uh,
crazy in terms of what you earn.
crazy yields that you'll get in the form of an incentive reward, right? So, like, if you go to a decentralized lending platform like Aave and you want to stake ETH on it, or excuse me, lend ETH on Aave, okay, you're gonna get uh, 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 a certain amount in the Ethereum, right? That you're getting naturally based upon the actual mechanisms of the market itself. There's a rate at which people will pay you to lend your Ethereum, but then Aave will potentially provide a reward token on top of that, right? To incentivize you to put money into a particular pool, a lending pool. So, anyways, you see stuff like that throughout the stablecoin industry today as well, right? So for instance, so the reason why Coinbase is losing it, right? Because technically what just happened was a compromise. So the
Mm.
most recent version of the bill was banks saying, well, y'all can't just offer passive yields. Okay, but y'all can do this reward incentive thing. That's totally fine. And uh Brian Armstrong's like, nah, bro, like we need to be able to pay yield, period. Cause also the lines are gonna get blurry around that. Like, let's be real. Like, oh, it's only a reward incentive. Well, but so if the banks get that, contingency of only rewards, then they're going to get to define what the rewards mean and all of that, and make it a lot harder for these stablecoin issuers to pay the yield that they want to pay. And so the reason this is such an issue for Coinbase is because Coinbase already does this, right? They already actually have these yields that they're paying out on stablecoins on their platform, right? So I think that's one of the biggest reasons why this is such a issue for Coinbase. I think it's fascinating that people are saying that this is like not going to happen anymore. I saw a tweet from Senator Lummis who was like, "Everyone's still at the table here. Like, we're going to figure this out." They just pushed the bill back.
Mhm.
And I think if we're not in agreement, then that's probably a good thing, right?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But I'm seeing some really good back and forth in the chat that I wanted to bring to the forefront. Where
Let's do
I've
it.
been seeing this consistently, right? Where the ethos of Bitcoin was to escape slash reset the current financial system. The banks and institutions aren't in it for the same reasons, of course, right? But I do think that the beacons of trust that rightly or wrongly the banks have become, for this to reach mainstream adoption, this was always going to be the path, right? And like there's no world where we were going to be able to convince everyone to be their own bank and self custody and do all these things. Like that was just a fairy tale dream, right? Like, of course, we would have all loved that, but we were attracted to crypto early because we thought the way that we did, right?
Yeah.
That's also why the same people that would never listen to us would call us crazy. It's the exact same thing, right? So it was always going to happen like this. It's just a matter of, can we get it the best that it has to be for the progression to continue? In a perfect world, I would love for everyone tomorrow to be their own bank, to self custody, to do all these things. I just think that that's too much too fast for people that are far too ill informed in that. And so I think this was always going to happen the way that it was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. If you're going to see any mainstream wide level adoption of this technology, then it's 100% going to be coming from the institutions that we have in place today, whether it's the technology platforms or the banks. Um, and what we kind of saw was that Congress didn't like the idea of the technology platforms being the ones in control of that, right?
Mhm.
When you had Libra, right? They were just like, no, you're not allowed to do that. And I think it's kind of fair. If technology firms can take over banking, then you really, really have very little um, room for any type of freedom, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest.
No, definitely. I think that this was not like all this shit's fairly predictable, but I do think that I'm hopeful that this will lead for people to get more educated on the potential reality of being their own bank, hopefully. And then maybe that can spur some more thought.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that scares me the most is that we might get to where uh, the further we go down this rabbit hole of these institutions being the place to go to get access to this technology, the easier it's going to be for governments and legislators to find a reason why we can't self custody is kind of the
Mm,
thing that I'm really concerned about moving forward. Um, because then, yeah, that completely takes away the whole point of this. And I actually watched something. This guy, Craig Cast, shout out to you. He sent me a video last night, and it was of Joe Rogan and Brett Weinstein, I think is the guy that he has on there pretty often. He's a really,
mm.
really smart guy. And he was like, he's not like some crazy crypto guy or anything, but he was talking about how there's like this conspiracy of how there will be a way for governments to basically like put everything on chain. I don't remember the exact words he used.
I think I sent it to you, right?
Maybe you did send that to me. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. No, I sent it to you. I see it right here. Yeah.
Oh, you did send that to me. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. No need to apologize. But yeah, that's the clip right here. And a lot of it's basically what you have said in terms of your concern or the path that you think is most likely to usher in central bank digital currencies that's programmable money, right? And a lot of it has to do with the the fact that like so much of what we think we own is kind of like a trust me bro, right? Like, even I saw someone here, and I can't speak to the validity of this claim, but it's apparently within the one of the BlackRock's ETF for Bitcoin. They don't even promise that they hold Bitcoin. But just that they just promise the return that matches BTC, right? So there's, and I'm not saying that's the case. I haven't looked into it, so do your own research. But there are a lot of these things where we're very much trusting a lot of things that could change very quickly. That's so funny. Yeah, my book, just to touch this. Yeah, my bookshelf is organized by color. That was not me that did that. My girlfriend's like, the people will love it, and I was like, okay, okay, I guess they did. So shout out to her. Go ahead, Keith.
By the way, you guys both sent this to me, so I wasn't crazy at least, but
Cool.
still, so this, yeah, so I guess this is blowing up, but yeah, the idea he's called this the Great Taking, or there's a book called The Great Taking, and so because of the fact that like there's this disintermediation of ownership, or rather intermediation of ownership, where with stocks is what he goes over in this example. We don't own stocks anymore. We used to have stock certificates. We would have them in our possession, and now we don't. Now they're kind of held by a platform like the DTCC and
Mhm.
or BNY Mellon that kind of sits in the middle of where all of these transactions actually take place. But you never actually have custody of these assets. And so because of that, there can come to a point to where he was like, well, if uh, the system failed, right? If banks went bankrupt, as an example, too,
Mhm.
um, where it's like, oh, okay, like your money's gone, but we have this FDIC insurance will insure up to this amount of money. But if you want to take that money, you're going to have to take this money in central bank digital currency.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, snap,
You
dude.
force its adoption, right? 'Cause it's either collapse or take this.
Yeah.
Right. So the example that Keith just illustrated that Weinstein goes on to explain on Rogan's show is basically, okay, if things collapse, basically all you had was an IOU, and within the IOU, it could say that if we have to liquidate this to cover other debts, that it's insured or whatever in terms of dollars, but I'm sure there's no guarantee that it's dollars that it can't be digital currency, right? And then when that happens, your back's against the wall. You're forced to either go under and become literally poor, or take this money that is programmable and it's a central bank digital currency.
Yeah. So I never considered that route because the thing that I always thought about was just the like what we saw in 2020, where there was like a need to hand out money to people,
Yeah.
and then that be the mechanism. And in fact, in that time, it kind of flew under the radar, but Maxine Waters had published something in Congress where it said Fed accounts, digital, federal, like digital dollars or whatever. And people were just like, whoa, 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 what? Like that technology doesn't even exist. What are you talking about? Fed accounts and Fed digital dollars? Like, where is this legislation coming from when there's no technology that's supposed to be allowed to that creates
Does
that
that.
enables that anyways? So, anyways, I thought that was great. That was a crazy time right there. But yeah, I always looked at it in that way. But this right here, I was like, dang. And I mean, this dude is just super smart. So I don't necessarily know that he's not a crypto person, but for someone to be adjacent, right, to all of this stuff and to say something like that, I'm like, that's actually a really, really uh,
Scary.
intelligent way of looking at it.
Yeah. And I also think that things like this, clips like this, I think that the crypto is going to become very, very mainstream as these things get pushed into law. Because where do most people go for their information when they're pressed for time? It used to be the news. Now I would say it's probably the podcasting circuit, right? So what people view as a problem these days is whatever theme is pushed on the podcasting circuit consistently, right? And like
Mm.
I've been part of creating that when I had clients within the AI space, right? Like that was literally what we were doing. And so I think that if you spot, like I think that crypto will become very consistently discussed because of people are aware that money is kind of the main character for the majority of these problems. And if the rules for money are being changed, and that's being ushered in from the adoption of crypto, period, these conversations, like I think, I think this is the year that Joe Rogan becomes obsessed with crypto. Right. And so then for what that can do is when he does it and he gets a lot of views for it, it now gives everyone else around him permission to talk about this thing.
Imagine that. I feel like he's stayed very far away from it so far. Is that true? Like
What?
he had Sam Altman on
For AI or
before.
crypto? What do you mean?
Yeah, for crypto. Oh, Andreas Antonopoulos he had on. And that's so cool. This was 2016. Joe Rogan had Andreas Antonopoulos on, and that is such an awesome thing because he's by far, especially back then, he was the most vocal person. He was the most well articulated person about this, and wasn't just talking about like the money go up and down, but
Mhm.
like what does this mean for society to have all of these
Yes.
technologies? And so, anyways, I could see it. It might be time, right? 2016. That was literally 10 years ago now.
I think it'll click in his brain, right? I think that, and then when he does that, he has such a force that moves everything else. And that kid, 1997, has a funny comment here. So TikTok is a news and research for many people. Uh, yeah, for many people, but I don't know if it's, I would say it's very fickle in nature. Like the people that go for their information from, say, TikTok versus a longer form content span, they move their opinions as the narrative on those platforms move too. So I still think that the most influential thing in terms of long term decisions is still podcasting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I found it fascinating to see how the people talk about the TikTok and the news and people sending me stuff like, "Oh, have you seen this? Have you like?"
It's
I don't
such
want to see it.
shit, dude. I don't want to see
I
any of
don't
it, man.
want
It's
to see it.
pure rage bait. Like it's the yeah, it's such a waste of time being on those platforms. But where do you want to go next with the timeline of things?
Let's see. So one of the big things that I thought was interesting about what's happening now that I wanted to dig deeper into is like this concept of lobbying, right? Because one of the big things that was happening with this legislation here is that you've got what's called the American Bankers Association, massive, massive, massive industry group, and they are always there when it comes to any of these laws that have anything to do with fintech or banking regulations in general. And so they're one of the most vocal people that are kind of here talking about like, ah, well, don't allow these stablecoin issuers to pay out yield. And so the American Bankers Association, um, and this concept of lobbying, right? Like it's built into the system in the United States. And I've always found that to be kind of interesting because, like, what exactly is lobbying and why is it allowed? Why is it that we're allowed to essentially pay to get legislation kind of influenced by these outside parties? So I started to dig into that a little bit. And what I found was that, well, first off, the word lobbyist, right? What it actually comes from was people who would literally wait in the lobbies of Congress to corner lawmakers and like, pitch some ideas to them or, whatever they want to see happen in
That's
law.
wild.
And in general, that's kind of what these people's jobs are, right? They hang around in the Capitol to knock on legislators' doors and, um, get them to talk about bills. And so the organizations that employ these lobbyists, like, if you've got somebody whose job is to sit around and, like, bug people all day, like, you gotta have a nice amount of money. And these people's entire job is to kinda, like, basically, like, kiss up to these senators and get them to listen. But what was super fascinating was to see kinda, like, how this happened over time. So, if you go back to the early 1800s and stuff, what used to happen was industry players would just straight up like give stock to senators. They would just be like, "Oh, we're building a railroad. Uh, it'd be really nice to have some support on making sure that this is something that is legal, and here's some stock in the company that we're about to build this railroad through." And they would give stocks directly to politicians. They'd pay for travel, housing, consulting, and then these people who were giving the stock to these senators, they would straight up write the legislation themselves. Um, and then that led to some scandals where people were like, "That's not acceptable. That's probably not the way to do things." And then so there was this definition that was needed to be created around like what's bribery
Yeah.
and what is like lobbying or influencing the
Yeah.
decisions of these people. And I didn't know this, but it's very fascinating. So the official definition of bribery means that there's something of value being exchanged that's given directly to a public official in exchange for a specific official act. So the two things that kind of like differentiate lobbying from bribery is, are you giving this to the official? Are you giving this to Senator Lummis?
Wow.
And is it in exchange for a specific vote? But otherwise,
You're good to go.
you're good to go.
That's absurd.
You can give it to their political organizations, and it can be generally like, hey, this is the stuff that we would love to talk to you about. These are the things that we think about and that we care about.
That's happening a lot where people are looking into this a lot more. right? And being like, who's paying the lobbying dollars for these things? And it's definitely making people ask a lot more questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating thing that it's really just a part of our system.
It's super. It makes things make a lot more sense, dude. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? When you really see how money can sway all that stuff like that directly or indirectly, right? And I saw one thing I want to touch on here before I give the floor back to Keith, which was freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. So I've been seeing a lot of people in the crypto community saying this a lot, but yes, some stuff gets censored, but most stuff that doesn't get seen, it's because they're bad marketers, right? Like some of the complex stuffs that people talk about, they're like, "Oh, I'm not getting viewed because I'm getting censored." It's like, no, man, you're beside someone's favorite sporting team. They're the person they hate the most, like all these different figures, and you're expecting people to give you an hour of time to hear about a super niche subject. Like, no shit, that's not going to get reached. It's not in the best interest of the platform. So, of course, there are some stuff that gets censored, but I do think that a lot of people who are thinking that their content is getting suppressed, it's just because they don't really know the content game as well as they think they do.
I hadn't heard that.
It's going
Um,
around a lot from crypto creators.
and like, what's so they're saying that these platforms are suppressing their reach.
Yes, more or less. Like they're like, oh,
Okay,
they're nuking crypto Twitter because they don't want free thinkers like us to have a platform and have reach and things of that nature. Where
okay,
the depth of the content and the specific nature of it, where if you just think about, and I give this example whenever I work with clients and whenever I talk to Keith all the time, especially on a platform like YouTube, let's say, as you're coming up with your idea, right? Imagine a big circle is there, and your Venn diagram gets like closed when you think about every layer of prior context that's needed to care about these things. Right. So for a lot of these people saying I'm being suppressed, it's like, brother, there are like 4,000 circles within this Venn diagram. And then you have this tiny little dot here and you're expecting 10 million views.
that's interesting. Now that I think about it, I was having this conversation with David Gokhshtein yesterday, and he was feeling like a lot of the OGs in the crypto space have been getting suppressed on X in particular because that's his major platform. And I think it's, I mean, I think it's interesting.
There's always degrees of that for sure, but people like to they blow it out of context because they don't know enough but enough to really speak with that much conviction. Well, they think they do, but niche don't get reach. Unfortunately, drama does. That's the other problem with these permissionless based algorithms, right? Where you don't have to click anything. Naturally, drama always gets more reach. So then you also have to think about all these soundboards or these messaging parrots. Like they know that too, whether they're aware of it or not. They will typically default to starting drama because they know it's guaranteed money in their pocket. So it's present all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the things that I'm most just trying to be as conscious as I can about. Because when it comes to trying to play the game of social, it's like you always are going to be kind of walking on a line.
It's a fine line, right? So you have to understand what your MO is for the project, which is also why people really underestimate the significance of like what working with someone like me brings to the table because I'm trying to play through all those scenarios and do cost benefit analysis all the time, right? Because if you do go the route of views by any means necessary and you're in a long-term relationship based thing like this, you're eventually going to alienate the audience. Right. So
Yeah.
now you can go through comment sections of other podcasts and they're always like, I'm so over this clickbait crap, right? And it still works to a degree, right? But I do think eventually you're eroding that relationship that you have, which is always why like, I could be a lot more clickbaity with our titles and thumbs, but I believe in the foundation that we're building and the significance of what will come after. That I'm willing to forego a little bit of early reach for long-term trust.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's such a cool thing to think about. I've only learned to think about that more as working with you more, because like there's a lot of in the economic space, guys. Like there's this one called The Epic Economist. Okay, and I used to watch them all the time as a kid, and every single video that they post is a doom post.
Most creators get there because it's guaranteed viewership, right? And again, they won't even realize why they're doing it, but it's sheer like fear porn on
Yeah,
most of social media, right? And so if you want that to change, guys, like you got to fight your natural inclination to clicking it or watching it or sharing it, right? And it's very hard to do, which is also why we try not to like dramatize too much here. We try not to be too hyperbolic. It also is crazy times. I'll give some people the benefit of the doubt there. That shit is crazy. but people milk it. And every time it's like, the sky's falling, the sky is falling, right? And it's just like, how many times can the sky fall?
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like naturally, like, I stopped watching it, you know what I mean?
Yes,
Because it's like, all right, like, you can only tell me that the economy is gonna crash every single day for so long,
for
you
so
know?
long, of course. Yeah, and so I think that how you make that change is you give your time and attention to people that don't do that as much, right? And I'm not saying I'm never going to try to win your click, but I view it as that. I'm not trying to bait you to click. I'm trying to win it, right? And that's a very different thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like YouTube especially has done a really good job of figuring that out. Like, like back in the day, obviously click-through rate was everything, right? Like if you click on the video, then you're gonna get a view. But I feel like now YouTube knows, like they know if you're clickbaiting from what I've seen.
Because
Like,
there's so many data points,
yeah.
right? So now they can see not only like quality of the content, but this is a big thing here, right? Where Max says, I agree. I've stopped watching a number of people for their thumbnails not matching their content. That's another thing that they get
Mm,
wrong all the time.
mm.
The checklist of things I'm running through is, will the person who I got to click this video be happy that they did? And so few YouTubers ask themselves that question, and they sacrifice a lot of credibility for the sake of views.
That's super interesting, and I mean, this was a challenge that we went through with my channel for sure. That exact comment was something that people kept leaving. They were like, "These thumbnails don't match what you're doing," and I'm like, "Oh, okay. Let's try some new approaches and like just try some new stuff."
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's all fascinating. I've seen a couple of questions that I want to come
Go
back
for it.
to.
There's another comment by Rob here. So that's all crypto channels right now. People don't want to hear bad news. They do to a degree, and I think it does reach a point where they get super fatigued by it. I think the whole crypto market is now at that point. But they also, a lot of the people in the crypto space, like they're making so many mistakes, man. Like what they don't realize is, and for all you crypto people who will eventually watch this, like you guys are making so many mistakes with your packaging, where they wonder why they're not getting retail, and then they're not thinking through the situation. Like it actually is mind-boggling to me that they haven't figured this shit out. But when everyone got burned the last few cycles and all the thumbnails and titles looked and sounded the same,
Mm.
and they expect the same titles and thumbnails that how these people who watched this got screwed by it, feel like that's what robbed them, and they expect them to click it. It's like, are you insane? Like, how do you think this would not lead to the exact outcome that you have? Did you find the questions?
I didn't.
Okay.
But one thing that I did want to try to pivot back to,
Yeah.
um, is kind of how these banks through time have constantly played with laws to try
Yes.
and stifle innovation.
Go for it.
And they'll call it protection of the consumer over and over
Always protecting us, man. Always in our best interest, right?
again. So one of the big moments in history was the Glass-Steagall Act in the 1930s. And so what happened in the 1930s was you had this big mixing of, let me just say it this way. You had investment banks and then you had consumer banks, and they were one thing. It wasn't separated out. So you had um, what ended up being the problem with that is that you've got one big bank that's making investment decisions with the same money that they're supposed to be safeguarding, right? And that uh, yeah, essentially you end up getting this mix, this mismatch of incentives around like, oh, well, I'm going to go take risk over here with this money, but our customer deposits are over here on this side, and well, what's the difference? I don't know. Like we're just playing that game with no rules around that really. So the Glass-Steagall Act of the 1933 era was, hey, we need to have two separate things. We need to have an investment bank and then a consumer bank. These can't be the same exact things. You can't take your customers' money and go invest, right? And so this whole Glass-Steagall Act essentially it separated those two types of banks and created the FDIC at that time. Now, this was framed as risk control, right? And large banks they supported this because it kind of froze some of the competitive landscape. It prevented new hybrid financial models from emerging. Now, what ended up happening later was the same large banks that were cool with the separation of investment banks and consumer banks. They were like, actually, no. we want to repeal this now because at that point they had the scale that they needed to be able to dominate both sides of the game, right? To where they could do investment banking and consumer banking really well. And so this is the same thing that we could kind of be seeing happening here with the crypto industry, where banks are saying, well, actually, no, we don't want stablecoin issuers to be able to pay yield because we don't have our own stablecoins yet. Like, we're not cool with that. So no. But as soon as they're at the point to where they have, they're launching tokenized deposits. Okay, you're starting to see some of that from BNY Mellon as well as from JP Morgan. And as soon as they're ready, right, with all of this technology in the back end, then that's when they're going to be cool with crypto becoming mainstream. And when we really look back at the what's happened over the past 10 years, it kind of feels like that's what's been going on in general, right? Um, we're just finally at the point where the legislation is actually about to cross the finish line. But before now, I mean, these bank lobbies have been able to keep this stuff from even becoming the conversation at all, right? The only reason this is really coming in like this, let me one of the big reasons that this is coming in like this is because of the president, right? The president was like, we are going to get America to be the crypto capital of the world. And so
Mhm.
now Congress and everybody's like, oh, well, we got to do this. But like, uh, crypto industry's been asking for this for over a decade, right? So, anyways, um, the way that these banks continue to try to stifle innovation is like they'll frame competition as a risk, right? This is a risk to the system. So, new entrants, new business models, those equal instability to the system. Okay, and innovation equals unregulated danger, right? So anything that's not a bank is a shadow bank, and it's they've got all these terms. Where do all these terms come from, right? Like the shadow banking industry and all this stuff, probably from these bank lobbies who are trying to prevent there from being competition to what they do. And then, so what do they do after that? They frame the competition as risk, and then they move into advocating for complexity. So there's other scenarios in history where they argue, like after 2008, they wanted to create more complex rules, right, for how banks can come into the game, and these new rules favor having scale, right? Like if you're going to be able to become a bank, what happened in 2008 was the regulations to create a bank got so high that what we've seen is the amount of banks that there are in the United States has declined drastically since 2008 after all the new laws came in place, because to be able to launch a bank, you have to have so much money invested into the legal side of the game, and no one has that kind of money. And the requirements for how you can lend out require you to have scale. So all the smaller banks have been just dwindling and dwindling and dwindling. I don't have the exact numbers right now, but it's insane. Like the amount of banks that we have in the United States has dropped by fractions since 2008. And so, and that came from banks after 2008 essentially saying, "Oh, well, we need higher regulatory scrutiny for anybody to come into the game," and they get away with keeping people out through that. Um, so anyways, then, in the rulemaking process, these laws are going to end up being super vague. The agencies are the ones writing the details, and um, you just kind of see banks finding ways to delay as well until they're in a place that they're actually able to dominate whatever it is that the is in question. So that's kind of how this stuff can look like over time. The Glass-Steagall Act is probably one of the most clear ones where you know big banks were cool with not being able to offer both types of banking until they were ready to do it. But you see it in every single form uh, of banking. And there's a book that I read last year. It's by a guy named Henry Kaufman, I think is his name, and it's a really really good book. He was gosh, where did he work? He worked at one of those big firms that ended up going under. Um, but it's a whole book. It's called Interest Rates, the Market, and the New Financial World. Um, and it's super boring, but it's a really good book on how like banking regulations kind of can create moral hazard, right? So when banks aren't regulated very highly, they take a lot of risks. And when they take a lot of risks, people get hurt, right? But when you regulate the banking industry too tight,
Mhm.
money's not getting made, You get, depressive slash repressed financial conditions, and it basically just talks about the balance of all of that.
It's fascinating to see because Canada, where I'm at, and where you are, has such different approaches to the banking industry. And it's so interesting to see this play out in real time, like how their different approaches are impacting the financial health of each country. And there's been some rumblings in the Canadian system where a lot of people who have had their money in things that they were told that they'd be able to take it out of that were real estate type investing vehicles, they're now being told they can't take their money out, which is definitely leading to some panic a little bit.
That's interesting. Is it like are these funds?
That's my understanding. Yes. So I'll have to look more into it before I would say anything with conviction. I'm saying it's just worth looking into
Mhm.
because we have a very strict approach to our banking system. Like where you guys talk about there being not that much competition, there's none here, man. Like there's like four banks that essentially run the whole thing, and then they have little subsidiaries that are the illusion of competition. We have that in every sector in Canada. We are the land of the oligopoly, where in telecom it's the same thing, banking it's the same thing, and so with that does come the security, right? But it still has its problems too.
Right. Right. Yeah, you guys, like, don't have, ACH or something like that?
We don't have we don't have the ability to have all the apps that you guys use. So for like pay, like what's all that shit that you guys use? Venmo. The amount of times I've been asked to send someone Venmo or Cash App, and I'm like, brother, I can't do that. So we can't do that. But yeah, there's a lot more laws. We're a lot more strict, which has had some positive things during times of economic crises, but it also created a very amplified overdependence on our real estate market for our entire country's financial state.
Mhm.
And so when now, for the first time in since I've been alive, really, we're like people are very concerned about the Canadian housing market. It starts to see how tightly interconnected those things really are.
Understood, man. Um, I'm gonna pull this chart up real quick because
Yeah,
really
do
this
that.
happened back in, essentially late '80s, early
Mm.
'90s. You're starting
Wow,
to
that's a
see
crazy drop.
yeah, dude, huge, huge drop in the amount of FDIC-insured commercial banks and branches in the United States. And they're calling this the Great Consolidation.
Wild.
And so, yeah, all this just has come through different types of regulations and stuff. And the point here being that large banks, right, they like this. Okay. This
Of
is their
course.
competition going down. And and this is it translates right over not only to their own industry, but when it comes to fintech, they have been absolutely shaking in their boots around all this technology because it can make a lot of the different things that they do. Uh, okay, so here's the problem with the bank. Here's why, rather, these neobanks are winning, or they're going to win over time. Banks offer all these different types of stuff. Okay. They will give you a mortgage. They do small business loans. They take your deposits. They buy treasuries. They do all these different kinds of things. They do credit cards. And so because of that, what's happening with technology is it's taking each and every one of those business lines and it's competing on them and offering them at a better they're offering better services for each and every product line. And so banks are like struggling with that fact of, well, SoFi can come in and offer your online banking and you got everything that you need there and they can pay higher yields because they're not loaning people for their mortgages. And it's like their capital and stuff isn't tied up in all these
It's more
different kinds of
liquid.
ways.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, so this is what's happening is like this, I think they call it like the disintermediation of all of these different types of services. Uh, And so, yeah, and so banks are dealing with the fact that, well, they're doing a good enough job of, keeping these fintechs from taking all of their business, but, uh, this is the fight, is, each and every business line that could be offered better, the stablecoin being like the payment solution, and potentially also a place where you can park your money more effectively. If you get a better payments platform and I can earn a higher yield there, then that puts a bank in a really tough spot. So anyways, that's kind of the big thing there.
No, 100% definitely stuff that everyone has to consider. And I think one pro from a lot of this is that everyone just kind of, like, how many things do we do in the banking world where it just is because it is, because there's so few people that can come into this space. So people don't really ask questions. They just are told the rules of the road and they abide by them because they have to. So hopefully more people will gain a level of understanding for why they have to do the things that they have to do, and the fact that there is technology and hopefully tools out there that can give a little bit more power back to the consumer. And I think an educated consumer is really the only way that you can demand things. You have to know they exist and that they're possible to do that. And also, you can make better decisions, understanding your appetite for risk. Because anything with crypto stuff too, like, yes, a lot of the systems are can be better. You can make more money, but like we've talked about before, some people get into things not understanding the risk profile too.
Most certainly. Um, what's up, Lucas? Welcome in. Where do you think we take this from here, man?
Did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on the Clarity Act in particular?
I think I've kind of gotten most of that out of my system.
Cool.
Uh, yeah,
I
I mean
can go ahead.
there was one other thing. So Brian Armstrong, he made a whole post right last night where he was saying this is the problem with the Clarity Act. So there was a few different things that we haven't really touched on that was also introduced in the most recent version of the bill. He basically said that he felt that there was a de facto ban on tokenized equities, which obviously isn't going to work. Doesn't even really make sense since we've already had the SEC basically tell the DTCC, for instance, that they can go ahead and move forward with the tokenization of uh, securities. Period. Um, so the problem here, the reason Byron Armstrong was so mad is because like we've made so much progress, and this bill is trying to almost take some of that back. So the second thing he said was DeFi prohibitions, giving the government unlimited access to your financial records and removing your right to privacy. Also, a pretty big deal here. Um, this is one of the biggest debates around all of this stuff coming into where we are today. Is Zcash had this big pop last year, right? Everyone's like, "Oh, we got to have a way to like protect privacy in this new world that we're moving into with this technology." And the thing is blockchain isn't inherently like private, it's inherently very public. All right. So if we're not using technologies that preserve privacy in all of it, then that privacy will get taken it that lack of privacy will be taken advantage of. And so he's saying that the in this bill, I haven't seen this part, I haven't read this parts of the bill, but they're basically saying that any financial records could be monitored and used, I guess, by the government. The third thing that he mentions is the erosion of the CFTC's authority, stifling innovation and making it subservient to the SEC, which is literally the exact opposite of what this bill is supposed to do. It's supposed to give the CFTC the right to actually regulate this industry first and foremost, and then the SEC for things like specifically tokenized securities when uh, that is what's in question. And then obviously the thing that we've been talking about, which is the amendments that would kill rewards on stablecoins, allowing banks to ban their competition. So these were the different points that Brian Armstrong did actually point out. Um, and he also said, "Hey, I'm actually quite optimistic that we will get to the right outcome with continued effort. They'll keep showing up and working with everyone to get there." Uh, so yeah. Anyways, I think. Uh, all of those things considered, right? If the bill were to get through as it were, and it does all the things that he says it does, and that would definitely not be net positive for the industry. It would actually set the industry backward from where we've
Mm.
actually gotten with just the regulators, right, coming in and saying that a lot of these things are okay. And so this is the last thing I'll say about that is you've got regulations. Okay, you got the FDIC, you got the Fed, you've got the Treasury, you've got the OCC inside the Treasury, the Office of Controller of the Currency, and they've all been issuing guidelines saying, "Oh yeah, this stuff is cool, it's fine. Banks can offer crypto products and this and that and whatever." And basically, this legislation, right, is going through the process of actually going through Congress, is trying to peel some of that back, and so that's why they're like, "Oh heck no, we're not doing this."
No, it makes sense. And I'm sure there are even more things that we should be concerned about that are tucked in, and maybe this is all just like disguising from the actual thing we should be really afraid of. But that's why we should, and as many people as possible should become aware and read this stuff. And I need to spend more time looking into all the specifics too. But one thing I was going to show you was while we've been on here, the poly market for will the Clarity Act be signed into law in 2026 dropped pretty significantly. So when we got on the call, it was at
Oh, wow.
61%, and it's dropped down to 48
Wow.
while we've been on the call. Interesting. But these things do move a lot, and there's not that much money on the market right now. But why it's a big deal that it gets passed this time is a lot to do with the upcoming midterms. And do you want to show? I just added a video to the sheet of Charles saying why he doesn't think the Clarity Act will get put in. So I think
Yeah,
that's
let's hear it.
worth showing, and then we can
Oh,
chop
you
it
want me
up
to
on
pull
it.
it?
Yeah, just in
Okay,
case, because obviously my tech does not like me. I put it in the sheet.
Clarity Act is going to, but here's the reality of the situation. I don't think the Clarity Act is going to pass in this quarter, and because it's an election year, we only have one left window, and if the Democrats retake the House, we will not have another opportunity till 2029. If it doesn't pass this quarter, I think Sachs should resign. He's utterly failed us as an industry. We look at three lenses: price going up, no; adoption going up, no. Do we have clarity and certainty, and do we have a strong foundation to build on? No. So if you're the czar and you're in charge of this whole thing, I got to judge you by your track record. Most cryptos are down 40 to 50% since Trump took office.
fair.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of things, and I do like how Charles, whether you agree with him or you don't, he'll speak his mind regardless of who he's referring to, which I think is something that I admire a lot. And yeah, so if this doesn't happen now, much like he says in other clips, then also that interview was very good, so I recommend going and giving it a full listen. Where he basically said is like, okay, if it doesn't happen right now, there's no world where it happens until 2029, more or less, because just the optics of everything around it. It just, with the political theater that we are forced to go through, you can't stake a claim on something and give potentially credit to Trump while you're competing against him, right? So it just makes it something that you can't even touch, even if it's the right thing to touch, because the optics of it publicly is just not good for your cause, right? So it's pretty urgent. I think time is of the essence here. And the person he was referring to is the AI and crypto czar. And I think it's kind of ridiculous that they put that's the same job. Like,
Yeah, that's a crazy thing.
That plays
to put
into your
in one.
thesis, though, about how it should be in the same conversation.
True, but yeah, that's too far.
I think that's too far for sure. So yeah, it's definitely gonna be interesting to see. There's people who have opinions that are strong on either side, and yeah. So this comment here from Bigfoot Steppin saying ADA's down 70%. Everything's down, man. Everything's down, right? And so everything is hurting. So then every sub pocket feels like their thing is hurting, but they don't realize that everything is hurting. That's also why I always go back to Buffett's statement: be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. If you look at something and you feel like it's worth 10x the price, that's times when you have the opportunity to show your conviction, or like put your money where your mouth is. A lot of people never change their situation because they knew something but didn't have the balls to act. I'm not saying crypto's going to go anywhere, but if you look at things and you're like, this is dramatically underpriced, okay, then change your life, right?
I hear it, man.
I still think it's going to be a good year, and
Everybody's
I think
so bullish. I was talking to these guys. I'm going to be on Kyle Chassis, I think, on Friday. We'll have our conversation out there. I was trying not to kill the vibe, but I'm like, guys, like, I don't know if I'm all that bullish. Everybody has so much conviction. I'm like, I'd love to see it.
I don't think people have that much conviction. I would say the general consensus is that things are not going to go well.
Fair.
I'm in your ear a lot, so I think that may skew like how many people are bullish. But I think dollar cost averaging into whatever you think you have conviction in, right? And whenever, like, I've spent years studying crypto and these projects, and so I came to my own investment thesis where when I'm viewing my assessment of things, I think certain things are dramatically underpriced, and so I go and I take big bets when I think something is dramatically underpriced. You got to have the conviction, and so if you're asking that question, you probably haven't done the reps to have the conviction necessary to like do that.
And sometimes it's mad. The reason I love the DCAing thing is because it's just math. Like, you can't really lose if you actually do that, right? But no one wants to do that. No, everyone wants to, do the fun stuff and play around with this and that. And it's like, I think you should do, if you're gonna be in the game, do both.
I like
Bigfoot DCA and then
play around. Don't play a game where like you lose if one thing goes wrong. I think a lot of people, they play with too much leverage, or they don't fully assess risk. They play a lot of FOMO and then they get absolutely screwed. But Bigfoot Stephen here says something that I want to touch. If you want ETH, buy NFTs. That, to be transparent, that my exposure to ETH is almost exclusively through NFTs. and I can explain that thesis if people want, but I've talked about NFTs enough. I'm sure people don't give a shit. But yeah, now it's down to 47%, by the way, Clarity Act. But this thing moves dramatically. Like we've seen drops, and it was at 70% only January 13th, and then it dropped down to 19%. So these things definitely can move. Possible. And so here's, I personally think they are just trying to get as many people out as possible, and they'll just pass the best bill possible when everyone is sleeping. Yeah, I think very few people are paying attention relative to how many people are going to be impacted by this. I really don't think people are aware of the significance of what's being put forward.
100%. I mean, yeah, this is just, it's a crazy time right here. That's all I can really say. It's cool that you guys are all around, because yeah, these are the times where like there is going to be some alpha here, right? Like when everyone's afraid, I guess I'm saying only the big crypto people that I know, I guess they're all super like, let's go. But yeah, when everyone's afraid, right? These are the asymmetric opportunities, right, to take advantage. But
also, when you look at everything else, we've talked about this so many times, where assets are the only way to preserve wealth, right? When there's rules to the road and all of these things, like everything else is probably overvalued at this point. What asset class apart from crypto is potentially undervalued? I don't think there's another asset class in the world. Like obviously heavy metals, depending if things get really crazy, then of course you could make that same argument there for sure. But they've seen crazy prices appreciations. And apart from Bitcoin, everything else has just been mutilated.
I mean, yeah, I think that's probably the one thing that you could easily say is, do you want to buy Nvidia right now, or
Or with crypto,
some like
even
you know
BTC, I'd rather
beat up
probably have that.
altcoins? But yeah, where that, you know.
So yeah, so Matthew, at the moment, I've not invested into any digital asset. That makes sense. Only stocks. What would be a starting point to learn about this asset class? I would say do exactly what Keith and I did. Go pick the top 50, read all their white papers, man. If you do that, and then from that point, it'll teach you and it'll give you like a compass, basically. Because right now, most people in the digital asset class world, they're blind. They have no clue what they're even looking at. And when you go to watch crypto first content, it's useless, dude. Like it's people yelling at each other about shit that doesn't fucking matter. Like go read what's actually being done. The people that are involved. What is the potential best case outcome of if this actually comes to fruition? Like what does that mean for the fabric of whatever it's trying to change? And then what is that potentially worth in the marketplace? Right? Like very few people have thought about this. They just see, oh, three-letter ticker. I'm going to throw my life savings into that, and if it doesn't work, it was a scam. Like, come on. How do you expect to change your life? Because the thing is, too, I think we're all agreeing, if you're here in the chat, right, that if you pick the right shit, your life can change like this. If you understand the significance of that, why are you not constantly determining what is the best shit? Right? Like, that's why when I saw this, I'm like, okay, this is the only chance that I have to actually materially change my financial situation. This and entrepreneurship. And I was like, okay, so from an investment class, there's nothing that's going to give me that asymmetric return that's out there, period, apart from crypto. So I spent like years becoming obsessed with crypto and trying to find my lane, because when a lot of things can win, recurring theme here, go find your unique advantage, right? So I went to the places where I'm like, I have unique advantages based on my experiences, the things I'm exposed to, and I'm going to make leveraged bets in places where I have the most conviction. I think a lot of people can make a lot of money like that.
100%, man.
This is great. What's white papers? Can you explain what a white paper is, Keith?
A white paper is like a usually not super technical paper that describes what something does. Right.
Great point, FMJ.
Let's actually look up the pure definition. So a white paper is an authoritative, in-depth report or guide used by businesses and governments to inform readers about a complex issue, advocate for a specific solution, or present a company's philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in crypto, these white papers are these general summaries of what a project does. You'll get some of the technical things in this, but it's usually not like the technical deep work.
It's
how
more
these
the
things
what,
actually
not
work.
the how.
Yeah. Yep.
And so with that gives you points to find opportunities in the marketplace, right? Where when you read this, you're like, okay, they're trying to do this. Like, let's say let's say for gaming, right? Like let's say you have a big history from gaming, whether it's your interests or your professional work, and you know there's this glaring problem that if they just made tech that allowed for this to happen, that'd be $1 trillion industry. If when you're researching these projects and you look at this and like, wow, that may actually come to fruition, how does that change gaming, right? And then what is that worth financially? Right? There's so many pockets of this, guys. Everything's going on chain. They're screaming it at you every time you turn on the TV. Like it's happening. You can fight it. You can say NFTs were a scam, but you will look back at this and be like, shit, I should have like been at least a little curious about things.
Yeah. And so my specific like big view on this, and I think is somewhat, I don't know, hopefully it's helpful to someone, is like, because everything's going to go on chain, because there's going to be hundreds and, well, whatever let's just say there are hundreds of different blockchains, and different, like you'll find something that you understand well. It could be gaming or whatever, and you'll find like there's like 10 different projects that address this thing that you're thinking about.
Yes.
And so then trying to find which one of those is going to do better in crypto. One of the things that I've gotten wrong a lot is thinking that the superior technology is the thing that's going to win.
Over a short time horizon, that's not that relevant.
Yeah, true. The best technology might not necessarily win, and it might not ever win. It's something that I've started to really try to think about, because this game is also a game of marketing. Like, who's branding their solutions the best? And yes, maybe it is a shorter term thing that just the prices of the tokens do better, but there's also like, when I think about it, I think about some of the top projects. I won't name them, but what they've done really well is they've gotten infiltration in like in organizations. Okay, and when that happens, because their branding is so good, because they've put in the work to go and be a part of this government that's doing this or whatever, like technically that can actually be, they can have higher levels of adoption just based upon that, rather than the actual technology being all that fantastic.
No, you're right. And that's really important to state. That's also why I love the dynamic we have, Keith, here, where I'm like the eternal like optimist, and you're like the realist who's like, okay, well, let's bring it back down and do it like this. So that's a very good point, right? The optics matter to a degree, especially for short-term price pumps. And when everything in value is perception based, the best propagandist or marketer, pick your word, that can create perception in turn creates reality. Like people really, I've always not understood how people can't grasp that. Like when we're all agreeing that everything is fake, right? All this value is fake. My ability to convince you something is value is what in turn creates valuable, right? And so I think that's really important to look into, is like, who's involved with this? Can they actually do that? What is their marketing? What are the converging forces that they're going to have in terms of timing and market understanding? Because a lot of times it takes people understanding a concept for where the technology is seen as valuable. Right. So if you are like super niche on something and you know that something eventually will be big, but if it's too complex for a mainstream audience or even investors to get involved in, you may just be so early. You'll be sitting in something for so long and you'll think that it's a scam. You'll probably sell it at the bottom and then it will go crazy and you'll be super pissed about it. So timing is a very, very important thing here. And another comment here from someone saying, that they said they're 40. I'm 41, guys. I've been in crypto since 2009. My peers still won't listen. And I get why they don't, right? I get why they don't, because there's been so much messaging to tell them that this was a scam. And everyone that they know probably lost money in crypto that touched it. The amount of people that have made money from crypto is incredibly small.
That's true.
And so the people who really made a lot of money in crypto, they don't really say it out loud.
Yeah, no,
right? Yeah, they definitely shouldn't, right? So then when you think about that, of course, they're going to think that it's a scam because everybody that they talk to also thinks that. But this can change incredibly quickly when more and more people start coming into money from crypto. It'll probably be these very structured entities like from like an index fund or whatever, where they'll start getting some exposure. And then they're just going to have a disproportionate returns. And then everyone starts thinking they'll view them like stocks.
Right.
They'll view them like stocks. They won't understand what's going on, which is which breaks my heart, but they will. And that's also a concept that they can understand and get behind. So I think when does this become something that's normalized? Like, when would my dad buy crypto without me screaming it in his face? I think his buddies would have to make a lot of money where he gets FOMO and he does it and he makes money too.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea that it'll just be like stocks. It's so funny, like when you see CNBC and them putting up the tickers and stuff on the page on their
I also
yeah.
don't like how they do it, where when they have it as like that coin, like, you know what I'm saying? Like they make everything look like Bitcoin. They just swap the
Yeah,
logo
yeah,
in
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
really
yeah.
don't like that because it's doing such a poor job of explaining what these technologies are. Like how could anybody see it any other way when it pops up to the screen like that?
Those little
We're,
fake crypto
yeah,
coins.
and this is the source of all that stuff. So it's yeah, it's definitely a little insane. I also saw a question here about what are the best NFT projects to buy. I would say just do your research, man. And the same sort of premise in terms of how I would make an investment thesis for a crypto project. The same is true with NFTs, but I actually think there's a lot less variables at play to assess. I think NFT investing is like inordinately easier than crypto investing.
Hmm.
There are so many less things that I have to predict, like so many less things.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. So the one other thing that I was going to say about all of this is, so because there's all these different solutions to all the same different problems with different solutions and approaches to those things, the thing that I think will be the most important, at least rather, the thing that I will always over index on is this concept of interoperability. Okay.
Mm.
If everything's going on chain,
Mm-hmm.
then why wouldn't I just own the thing that's going to allow everything to interoperate and talk to one another?
Mm.
Right. So
Go
I
ahead.
saw someone say something in the chat, and I won't like I don't want us to put it on the screen or anything. But FMJ crypto, like I hear you, my brother. I hear you.
100%. And we've talked about that so many times here. Like
Yeah.
if you're paying attention, you already know, and you're probably already parked there. But yeah, and totally hear what people are like saying. NFT, hell no. Like that's fine. I truly don't care. Like, you're not who I'm selling to. You're not who's involved in the market. So like that's fine. And if things go the way that I do, I'll mention a few of the NFTs that I'll sell this year, and then with certain people like that who have already made a decision, there's nothing that could be said or done that would change it. And that's, if you're ever at that place with almost anything that's not evil, you're an idiot.
Say that again.
If you have like absolute conviction on a subject matter that isn't like pure evil, like objective evil, right? Like I'm saying, like killing people, I don't think there's a scenario where that's a good thing, right? For the most part, right? But with shit like this, people have such strong conviction on something they don't even remotely understand.
Oh, okay.
Like they just hear that word. And so then now think about how bad our world is because people are like that with so many areas of life, whether it be a political figure, whether it be a country, whether it be a religion. They hear this, they stop listening. That's why there's people who are like, okay, maybe I'm curious about this. I'll explore this. And then they can go make a ton of money because you guys are not understanding the game that's even being played. So yeah, I totally get why people are like, oh, NFTs are a scam. Don't touch NFTs. But I've made the most amount of money of my life trading NFTs in a bear market. So like I'm living, breathing proof that there is money to be made, like in everything, if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I thought NFTs died. Well, that depends on your definition of it, right? I used the same example before of like the fine art market. You would never even know if the fine art market had died because you don't see the transactions. They're not real time and you're not involved in the marketplace. What's the value in NFTs? Tell me. What's the value in any of these things? That's the whole thing we're saying, right? It's all fake value. What is like, why is a fine art piece worth that much money? It's because people say that it is.
Yeah, it's the cultural aspect of it all, right? Like, why do people trade Pokemon cards? You know?
And that's also an indicator for why I think things will move, is because if you go back in time, right before we saw the altcoin season, the NFT mania, Pokemon card trading was like getting right back in the mainstream conversation. An absurd amount of money was being like changed hands around the the Pokemon card scene.
Wow.
This is a massive indicator for me for what this is one of my points where it was exactly like 4 to 6 months before where I started seeing everyone talking about Pokemon cards.
Wow.
Was when altcoins and NFTs went crazy like 6 months later.
Yep. That's crazy.
So watch on it. It's a cycle, right? Because here's what you have to think, right? For everyone who's saying that an NFT is dumb, a Pokemon card is just as dumb, if not more. Because you can lose that. It can be stolen, it can be burned, it can be destroyed in a flood.
Yes.
So this thing, that can't happen. So if the sheer value of it is I have it, you don't, this is a superior form of that. So I understand that, of course, the IP part of it is huge, right? Like Pokemon, there's been so many things that have made that valuable. I totally understand that. But IP can be developed over time, right?
Yeah, I think this is fascinating conversation here. Definitely the concept you're saying about being able to possess without the fear of losing it in the same way. That's a huge value add to any collectible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, major value of the blockchain in general, of being able to safeguard assets in a way that,
yeah, it's a big deal.
yeah.
And I scream from the rooftops, don't buy NFTs. Like I full on say that. So even as someone who's an NFT bull, I don't think you should buy it because I don't think that you'll do the work to make money. And so then you'll lose money and then you'll tell me that it's a scam. Welcome to the world of collectibles. Yeah, collectibles are huge. And I don't see that going away, especially with a digital collectible. So like when we roll out our NFT collection eventually, right? There's going to be perks and associated with that. It's going to be a way to enhance community and connection. And so when you get these other collectibles, they're kind of in a vacuum, right? Like, yes, you have the super expensive Pokemon card, but you're not going to bring it around with you because you don't want to lose it or get robbed for it, whatever. So what doors does that actually open for you in terms of connection? It doesn't really. An NFT inherently does that, right? Because when we conduct ourselves more and more online, if this is essentially like a ticket in, that's a big deal. That's also why I'm very bullish on NFTs, is because I think one of the core problems that we have as people is ironically, we've never been more connected, but I would say we're never more lonely. And we've never lacked connection more, right? I think these are tools that have done that. And if you go study NFT Twitter, why are people still there? Because it's the only place they had connection, man. Right? So you don't think more and more people are going, do you think that connection has become worse or better after COVID? I would say worse, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I think there's more and more people that are lonely now, right?
Right.
And so if something that I buy for like 20, 30 bucks gives me friends too, that's a pretty good buy.
Fascinating. You see, this is the side of things, guys, that I'll never be able to think about like that. But that's real. That is exactly what I think happened in 2020s and 2021s as well. I mean, people really wanted to be a part of the community. They wanted to be cool. They wanted to be on the inside of the joke or whatever.
So,
yeah.
Well, here, bro, what NFTs are worth buying? I will never tell you that. I guess that's kind of a lie. If you go back to my older episodes, I talked about one project in particular, and when everything in the sky is falling, that project's up like 25% or like maybe 20% since I talked about it on here. So yeah, do your own research, man. And I've also talked about how I conduct my investment thesis for each NFT project that I touch. Like I've said exactly the thought processes that I go through every single time. Yeah, interaction became worse after COVID. It's noticeable in gaming. Yeah, I agree. And also because there's a cost to entry into these communities, people don't want to get kicked out of them too. Right. And so I will say that they're typically a little more on their better behavior when there's skin in the game. Right. Like, why are people such pieces of crap these days? It's because there's very little accountability. People are always thinking like, I won't see this person ever again, whether it's online or whether it's in person. Like everything's very, very transactional. When you think about the social dynamics of like, why were kids not assholes growing up? It's because if they were an asshole, they got punched in the face and they'd have to see that person again. I think they should bring back more, like, not bullying, but like I've seen people be losers. Like they piss everyone off. They piss the wrong guy off. They get punched in the face. They become a better person.
Right.
Like, that doesn't happen.
That's real.
It doesn't need to be physical, right? It can be something that's educational and said out loud, but that doesn't really exist. There's no accountability anywhere. My dad taught me that stuff. He taught me what a knuckle sandwich was. And then the next day I went to daycare and I asked my friend Luke if he wanted a knuckle sandwich. He said yes, and I clocked him in the face when we were like 5. And obviously I didn't have the full context there, but I bet he never said yes to a knuckle sandwich ever again.
No, I don't think he would have.
No, but we were 5, so give me a break. But I do think the accountability thing is a big piece. And I also think that NFTs are one of the best mechanisms for that. We got 240 people here live, by the way, speaking of community.
Yeah.
So make sure to turn on notifications if you have yet to do so. We are only ever going to push live streams on this channel, so you don't have to be worried about getting spam with notifications. And you definitely want to be here live so that we can talk to y'all. And also the people in this chat too. They're awesome. Like there's everyone in here is super, super smart. Like connecting this to, damn Ben, where's the chill? Brother, I was 5. I didn't know. But everyone in here is pretty funny and really cool. So I appreciate all y'all being here. And yeah, Made Mike Boulevard. Yeah, I definitely should have been more chill. That was on my bad. I got in trouble. So don't worry. I was reprimanded for my bad behavior.
Oh man. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just funny.
I thought that was a good one.
Which one? The Trump one?
Yeah.
So you're saying the only thing Trump needs is a knuckle sandwich? It's hilarious. Boys, you need to right the ship. Put us back on the buffer course.
Yeah, man.
Here for the daily Keith D. Yeah, let's go, Keith. Putting out daily content, grinding. Show him some love over there. Whenever y'all see one of his videos, like it. Make sure you share it with your friends and whatnot, because he's grinding a lot. Like it's so much work to do this, where he's taking all this information and he's consolidating it into a point, and then delivering it in real time while walking, holding the stick. It's not an easy thing to do. And he's doing that also for a little more of the social media sauce, guys, is because it's more approachable for you to take in that information when you're not zooming in on the information itself. Right? Like why also I knew a show like this would have to be the way that we teach people about crypto is because people, whenever they get anxious, they leave. And people get anxious around the topics of like money or things they don't understand. But when someone's just walking through the park, the stakes are a lot lower, right? Especially when it's a good looking, well-spoken dude like Keith, right? You start listening a lot more and it's easier to consume, but understand the work behind it. Like Keith's been grinding. So definitely continue to show him love.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate all you guys coming through, and I appreciate everything that you guys contribute to the whole grind. And it's fun, man. I mean, don't take financial advice from a random guy talking to a stick. That one came to me and I was like, oh, this is my line now.
It's become a bit. I love it a lot. Well, do y'all have anything else in the chat you want to chop it up on? Did we have anything else?
I think that's pretty much it for me. I guess I could try to look at some of the news stuff. So we had the whole potential for an Iran strike that was going on last night. Everybody was tweaking out about that because they like cleared the airspace. So there was like no planes flying over Iran, and they're like, it's about to go down. But apparently it was called off last minute. This guy, he's a big geopolitical analyst and really just analyst of all kind of stuff. He said that some sources say Trump halted this because advisors couldn't promise a decisive regime toppling blow, and warned that Iran could hit back hard and the U.S. might not have enough regional assets ready to cope. So tensions are still high, but the war did not start tonight. Yeah, we love you, Abe.
Yeah, we appreciate you big time. That'll become more and more of a thing. If you want to learn more about the whole Iran situation and the social politics associated with that, Professor Jiang talks a lot about that on different podcasts too. So I strongly recommend going to watch some of the stuff that he does. He just did a podcast with another guy that I sent you, Keith.
Yes.
The Bitcoin guy. I can't remember his name off the top, but he's a smart dude, and they had a debate, which was really, really awesome.
Wait, was it not with Simon Dixon?
It was with Simon Dixon. You're correct.
Okay. Yeah. Simon Dixon is awesome, guys.
Yeah, we want to get him on at some point. I've already tried to reach out to him, but I've not heard back. So we'll keep plugging away on that one.
So one other thing about the Iran situation that I thought was kind of interesting was that before we got the news that they called it off, there was some guy who had opened an account on Polymarket and had a $160,000 position on a U.S. strike on Iran coming that day. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, dang, like that's crazy. Like Trump pulled it back last minute, imagine, right? And then some guy loses 160K. But just in general, right? Like this whole world that we're moving into with this stuff is like somebody out there. Now, $160,000 isn't enough to make any difference. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. But if somebody had put down like $100 million, something crazy, right, on an outcome like that,
Mm-hmm.
like what incentive would that person have to, get it done? Like I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna go do this. If it's $100 million on the line, I'm gonna go buy my rent.
Totally.
But so anyways, that's we'll keep talking about this stuff as it comes up. But the other thing that I was talking about to someone was, so Brian Armstrong came out and said, when it comes to these prediction markets, the insider knowledge rather, is a good thing.
Yeah, it has to be part of it.
Right. And I just find that to be fascinating to think about. But I guess it's like, yeah, if you don't have the edge, then you probably shouldn't be playing around with it. Like, what do you? Yeah, if you don't have edge, then you probably shouldn't be in that market, and that's for anything, right? Bro, Joe, Gen X, John, make shame great again. Loving the work you do. Thank you, bro, Joe. We really appreciate you. Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think shame. I think it's accountability and education is, I think, the appropriate ways of saying things. You guys, do you have anything else in the chat, guys? Because if not, I have some comments from last episode yesterday we could talk about too.
Yes, I will do one meme because I thought
it.
this was absolutely hilarious, and I got to share this with you guys. This is what my friends and family hear when I'm explaining crypto to them.
The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurting bearings were in a direct line with a panametric fam. The lineup consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes, so fitted to the ambifacient lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The main winding was of the normal Lotus O deltoid type, placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator.
So anyways, I just thought that was really funny because I'm like, dang, like the fact that it's possible for someone to speak in words that we just have no idea what they are, right?
But I think that's how we are whenever we talk about this shit, though.
Yeah.
Obviously, we do our best to try to avoid that and speak in layman's terms to make it approachable. But I see like my family's eyes just roll over when I talk about any of this.
Yeah.
It's the conversation is over before I started, right? Because the second they hear it's the relationship that these people have to the words too, right? Which I think is a trap. What's up? What's got you laughing?
Mr. Technogoody said that's explanation for what gives the US dollar its value.
That's really good. That's amazing.
Bro.
That's so good. You guys,
that's what master nodes sounded like when I got into crypto. Yeah, Clive Thompson would be cool to have on. Yeah, I don't know how he operates in that regard, but yeah, I found him because people, or I could see him in my back end where people were watching his stuff. So I can tell that all of you guys watch Clive Thompson as well.
He might come on.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool.
We should reach out to him.
Yep, because I doubt he's done a whole lot of these anyway.
So he'd probably be great, honestly. Yep. And he'd probably say yes if you said that as well, right? We have a lot of cross-pollination of our audiences. It'd be a good decision for his channel too.
Yeah, just send him a screenshot, like straight up. You're like the #1 guy that all my people watch.
Welcome. We appreciate you, Nana. We appreciate you big time. Welcome. Do you have any other memes for us?
No, that was it, man. You had some stuff you wanted to bring up.
Just some comments from the most recent stream. I figure we can go through and talk about it because the benefit of us going live all the time is that we can see where we made mistakes or things that we had missed, and we can try our best to address them the next time. So here's comments. You can't see my cursor, can you? That's so annoying. Okay, well, look at the blue one. So this was about the conversation that we had about our different opinions on whether a law degree was a good idea or a bad idea today in terms of is it worth the return on it. And Keith's thesis was that it's worthwhile in the hands of the right people, all that stuff. And then this comment was, if you're in an area where, and we also talked about, do grades matter in high school, all that stuff. So he said, if you're in an area where you are the majority matters, which I totally agree. If you don't have enough in common with your area, color, religion, class, or examples, if you share those things, it's way different from being in a minority. If you are a minority, you need every advantage you can get to be wealthy and powerful. Examples, grades, extracurriculars, connections, and other examples. And I was like, yes, I totally agree with that. And the whole point that I was trying to make when I talked about it before was the fact that I'm so risk tolerant is 100% a symptom of privilege, right? Like my family's risk aversion that created the financial comfort that I experienced is the only reason I'm able to be so risk tolerant, right? Like, and I'm well aware of that. And then they said, yeah, if you're going the traditional route, I would definitely agree, which is also why I'm very pro entrepreneurship, because you can't really, like, if no one sees your face, which you've talked about before, Keith, right? Like if no one can see your face, even if they're racist, if they don't know they're buying from you, then like it's the same end equation, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I guess just as an individual, it's hard to think of the path that is unique to me. I guess the default is traditional. I enjoy your show because it breaks my traditional mindset. Amazing comments. So Sam the Ram, you're clearly someone who's very smart, and you didn't make it like over the top or anything like that. So I definitely wanted to promote a great comment.
Yeah, Sam the Ram, this was a really thoughtful comment. And it was something that also made me really think about, just how to best try and frame, right, the thoughts that we're trying to put out here into the world. Because I can also acknowledge, right, a high level of privilege. And when you take these types of things into consideration, it does change the way that you look at going to college and getting a degree. It really does.
Totally.
You can't just as easily say, I'm not going to go to college when you don't have a lot of other types of options, right? Or certain types of safety nets around you as well. I think it does matter, right? Whether or not you're growing up in a place where you already have that support around you, whether that be your community, your parents, or whatever. So yeah, really thoughtful comment.
Awesome. And also think about the choices that a kid's forced to make, right? They either get to go have all of this fun, like explore, party, all this stuff, and they don't have to pay the bill right now. They can incur debt and pay it later. Or they start at the bottom of whatever food chain it is to go work while their friends are out there partying.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get why they don't do that. I just think that more and more people are going to see that maybe it's not worth the cost, but time will tell. I think a lot of non-prestigious universities will go out of business within the next decade. Maybe a little bit longer because they do have deep bank accounts. But I think that, I think a lot of universities that exist won't in like maybe I should expand the time horizon, maybe 20 years. But then here's another comment from Jody that just came in about the whole credit card things, where we talked about Trump's potential, like limiting the amount of interest that a credit card can charge.
Okay.
So you guys aren't looking at the other side of credit card people. I got injured, had no choice to use my card, $5,000, but now I'm on a fixed income and there is no way I can pay it off when 130 is interest and 32 is the principal each month. That's just wrong. I think we did consider that. Boils down to I'm going to have to just not be paying it. No other choice. Yeah. I think that's pretty much what we were talking about, no?
Well, I think we harped in on like the education side of it, but there's also the fact that you might know, but still have no other options.
Yes.
So that's fair. And in the US too, right? So there's this saying that my friend taught me a few years ago. She was like, everyone in the United States is one health emergency away
From being ruined.
from being homeless. And it's a legit thing because of the fact that we don't have any sort of coverage when it comes to healthcare. And even when you, for instance, the problem with this person's family was cancer. So even if you have insurance, a lot of times it doesn't cover cancer and cancer treatment. And so it's very, very messed up to think about this. And it really hit me when I was in Thailand because I'm like, whoa, how nice it is to like not have to make a decision about my health based upon money, right? Like I don't even have to think about, should I go and do this thing that is going to be good for my health because of money. But in the United States, like that's a really big issue. And medical debt, I'm pretty sure, is the largest kind of debt that we end up stacking up in the United States.
Totally.
And so, yeah, I definitely hear that, man.
Yeah, I'm also seeing some crazy comments in the chat. So
What you see?
it's not worth addressing directly, but
Okay.
I am not religious, and and when I'm speaking to like the situation that I was in, we by no means was my family rich. We just didn't have to worry about the next meal. Like we were middle class. I think true to its true definition.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I try to be as acknowledge the level of privilege I have to the best, but I do notice also that uh we underestimate like what privilege means. You know, a lot of times,
Because
like,
it's connected to everything, but you think it's not.
yeah,
Totally. The fact that I grew up in a town where there were so many super rich people, where I got to ask them questions all the time, like how valuable is that?
yeah,
It's absurd, right? And I also got to learn from a very young age that money didn't mean happiness.
right.
That was a massive cheat code because I could see all these super rich people that were assholes, had a horrible relationship with their wife, and they never talked to their kids.
Hmm.
Right. So
Hmm.
that was really, really empowering. That also allowed me to take a lot more risk because I was like, if I'm poor, but I'm doing shit that I like, I'm cool with that. There's no
Hmm.
guarantee that even if I'm super rich, that I'll like what I'm doing. So I'd rather go with, you know what I'm saying?
100%, man. Yeah, yep. Um, yeah, that alone, right? Just being around that kind of stuff is extremely valuable.
And it was also distorting to see how when it didn't go checked, how it changed the psyche of the children that came from homes like that were like super absurdly wealthy, and how it eroded their sense of, in some cases, right? Like if the parents weren't diligent, how spoiled people become very, very quickly. And then when you're spoiled, it also, you don't have resiliency.
Hmm.
Like we're at a point right now where a lot of people are very much not resilient. And so when they get punched in the mouth once, they're done. Not literally, but you know what I'm saying? No knuckle sandwiches for real. But yeah, no, 100%, man. But do you want to open it up to the chat?
Yeah, what up, chat? Oh, Sam the Ram's here, by the way, so that's cool. Thanks for pulling up.
What up, and welcome.
Yep. So what's on your guys' minds? Definitely hit that like button if you're still around. We got 238 people in here. We got way less than 238 likes. Hit that like button.
It's
Come
crazy.
on, man. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you haven't subscribed, that is offensive.
And I'm sure you have friends that come to mind when you watch this show that you think may like it too. Send it to them. That'll probably start a great conversation between you guys.
100%. There's so much to talk about here. So many conversations that we'd love for y'all to bring to us as well, right?
Yeah, we learned so much from you guys too.
Mm-hmm.
It's inevitable, and I think that I was also like, I was so lucky with how I grew up, man. Like the fact that I was in this like super rich town, but I happened to go to the one school where everybody went to. Like it was such a melting pot. So I also got to see that like the really poor people were sometimes way happier than the really rich people. So it also showed me the opportunity to learn from everyone, which is really the core point that I'm trying to make here. And yeah, Keith for president, 100%. We're gonna keep that going. Would you ever run for president?
No.
No?
No, I wouldn't.
You're one of the few people I've ever met where I would say, I'm cool with this.
No, never ran for president. I was actually talking to David Goshstein about this because he ran for like senator or whatever back in 2020. You guys, I wonder if you guys know who I'm talking about. I'm going to pull him up real quick because he's huge on Twitter, and I've definitely seen a lot of his work, and I unfortunately don't know how to pronounce his last name properly, but so I remember him actually running, right? He was running against I don't even know, but let me pull him up so you guys know who I'm talking about.
James, is this predictive history that you're referring to?
Yes.
I think his most recent lecture, this was a lot of it was talked about this. Sorry, I'll let your stuff be seen.
So this guy, David Goshstein, he ran for office, and I was asking him, I'm like, dude, like, why did you even do that? Like, why would you do that? And because he was complaining, he was saying that like young people aren't into this, like why aren't young people, running for office and trying to do cool stuff?
Not good ones.
Yeah, it's just like, well, listen, brother, like the incentives are off. And what we kind of came to is that one of the things that in America especially is a big thing is patriotism is gone, right? Like it's almost a sin to be patriotic. And the only way you would really want to run for office is if you wanted to fix the issues of your country,
Mhm.
right? So anyway, so he ran for the U.S. House to represent New York's first congressional district. He didn't end up making it on the ballot, but he was running, and he's a very cool. So you guys, uh, you know, he's got a lot of hot takes. So try to get him on the show as well. But yeah,
You're-
there's no way.
He runs a
Sorry.
good show. Yeah, and I was watching a philosophy lecture last night, and I forget who it was that they were citing, but essentially, the piece that they were referring to was about how if you're a great person, you owe it to yourself to run for office because otherwise you're guaranteeing that you're going to be led by a lesser man, and then that will lead to the erosion of society, right? So you're right that like it is so broken, but it's such a shit show at this point because I don't know how you attract sound mind individuals to that profession.
Yeah. The one thing I would do, guys, one thing I would think would be cool would to be like an economic advisor.
That'd
You
be
know what I'm
tight.
saying? Like being in the
Yeah.
comet in some way around finance. That'd be pretty sick.
That'd be so dope. And I'll be their social media czar.
Yeah. What do they call it? Like, like the minister of truth. You'll be the minister of truth, bro.
Could you imagine me up there, bro? People would hate me. So good. That'd be amazing. But y'all have anything else y'all want to chop it up on, guys, before we wrap up today's stream? I just want to say from myself personally, we really appreciate y'all hanging out with us for a bit. It's definitely some of the highlights of my week. We love chopping it up with you guys. And I also, something that we have here that we're going to do everything we can to fight and maintain is the fact that like discourse can happen, right? I think the sign of an intelligent person is someone who can have a relationship with someone that they don't fully agree with everything on. And I think there's far too little of that in society. And I think that if you want to become a more intelligent person, then be the person who's cool with having different kinds of friends and relationships, because everyone has things that they can teach you. And even if your own best interest, like for your own best interest, you deserve it to yourself to listen to the people you disagree with, because there's probably some merit you're blind to currently. And if you operate within these echo chambers, like we got a comment a few days ago that you and I were talking about it when I was in the airport, Keith, where this person was like, just like spewing, and you know that they agree with every other talking point that comes out of one specific direction. And if you're ever in that place too, you're done. You're cooked. Like if you align to say like right or left wing, and you just by default agree with every point that the consensus is on that side, you're cooked. It's done.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. I've luckily not watched anyone too close to me get to that point, but I've watched them get toward that point, and
Yeah.
then us have to call them out and be like, yo,
But a lot of people don't have friends like that, dude.
wait a minute.
A lot of people don't have friends like that, and that's actually what attracts them to this, because it's guaranteed friendship.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to give people other opportunities to connect with people that aren't mentally handicapped.
Yeah, man. There was one other comment I saw.
I've seen some of my family get pretty radicalized too by all this stuff.
It's tough.
It's also so funny to me though when people are like, I hate this person. And I'm like, bro, you spend 95% of your waking hours consuming content about this person. Like, are you meant to, like, how do you say this and not realize how crazy it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. A lot of people don't have friends. Thank you so much. You got a shout out today, by the way. They love the books.
Yeah, so and it's crazy because like all the content and stuff is just like built to tap into that, like what you were saying, right? So I know a guy who a big part of his business on YouTube is the characters, right? Like he's gonna go all in on these characters, because he knows that like people are gonna click as soon as they see that character's face again. Like, oh, what did this person do?
It's because it's borrowed attention. If you want to learn like a lesson in marketing, guys, is that when you are in this sea of choice that is YouTube, a tool that a marketer has in their tool belt is the relationship that's been spent from other people's time, effort, and money to make you have a relationship. The stronger, the better in terms of polarization. That's why Trump became president, right? Is because there's so much borrowed attention there that makes it easy for that message to spread for the messenger, and they get paid for doing it. Why is Trump the president? It's because he became the easiest thing to get guaranteed views on.
True. True. Facts, right? Like you end up being the topic of conversation. Um, and then back to the idea of just like keeping each other balanced. I have a really good friend who he commented on some of our posts on Instagram, and you know he didn't say what he really wanted to say. It was like there's solutions to this that I could propose, and we were talking about the U.S. debt situation, and he and I are able to like just chat, and I just think it's super important to have the ability to do that, guys. Like we cannot get to where other sides of our viewpoints aren't being discussed. And if we do that, then we're
So
heading
easy
in
to
a very bad
control.
direction. Yeah,
hmm
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, yes. So dang, the horseshoe. I think we've already brought this up before. The horseshoe spectrum thing. There's a horseshoe theory, which is that. So what Carl said was, what did Carl say exactly? He said both sides are the same thing.
I pulled it up here.
Okay, yeah. The irony of both extremes is ultimately the same. Right. So the horseshoe theory is this. You have the far left, far right, and they're closer to each other, right, than anything else.
That's amazing.
And I think that's real. I think that's really real.
That's so good. Yeah. And then someone else said that Trump is a great marketer. I think he was just kind of the perfect person to become content fuel. If you think of the timing of when the growth and the emergence of social media, and I really wrote a full piece on this in our Substack. So if you go to memesandmarkets.com, my latest piece on there was all about basically how social media radically changed the world, and Trump being the perfect person to become the social media president. The first one is that because when the incentive structures are the way that they are from social media platforms, a figure like him is like rocket fuel, and it went that way.
Someone said something about prediction markets earlier. I kind of forgot to hit on it. You're right about that. It was the idea of they could end up doing airdrops. So that is true. Like that is something that is a real thing to be looking out for. I personally have not actually played around on them, but you could absolutely see an airdrop. I actually wrote about that like 3 to 4 months ago. I said,
Can you explain what you mean?
Polymarket. So Polymarket could end up launching a token, and if they do that, there would be an airdrop for all the people that have used the platform before.
Yeah.
Thank you for making me expand on that.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. You have.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm not a huge user, but that is a potential here.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get why people use the platform. I get why it's a lot of fun, especially because sports gambling is really addictive. So you actually recently made a video about this, Keith, with why like sports gambling is so addictive is because they feel like they know it, right? And so they feel like they're actually playing some part of it. People get addicted to different kinds of gambling for different reasons, right? Like I could never be the person who could like pull a slot machine all day, but a lot of people are really addicted to that, right? For me, the only way you'd get me is if there was some sort of involvement with my intellectual capacity, right? Like, why do I love fantasy football so much? It's because I love knowing things better than my friends and beating them. Right. And so when that gets wrapped into sports gambling, it was like so many people got hooked if they didn't have other things going on. Right. And now Polymarket's given that to every sector. That's crazy.
Yep. Crazy thing to think about. The geopolitical analyst now has a place to go to place bets on whether or not Iran is going to get bombed tonight.
That's so dystopian, dude.
Crazy, bro. Crazy.
Like what? You can. So if we're saying that everything is money, right? You can become rich betting on people's lives getting destroyed.
Facts. 100%.
It's crazy. Yeah. So this is a good, like, I'm seeing some good back and forth in terms of like why the Democrats kind of have lost the plot in terms of getting voter share. I think they handled their media policy really poorly in the last election. I also think that they were coming from a bad place in general, having to switch up and give them a candidate that people didn't like come to the same conclusions with. Like she was kind of thrown into them, right? And so that changed the dynamic of a lot of things too. So I think that I think they would have been hard pressed to win the last election. And then when they didn't handle the media approach very well, I think they were pretty well doomed. So Yeah, it's a media game at this point because it's a perception game, and perception is created through what people consume. So it's yeah, and Carl is going on some points in terms of saying like who is the Democrats like candidate? Like I don't know. I don't follow American politics like that in depth. So maybe there's some awesome left side people that are they're beacons of hope. But yeah, it seems like the right wing people are better at content, man.
That's for sure. That's for sure. I think AOC had her moments.
Yeah, she seems to be pretty big, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but there's nothing like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying some ignorant stuff to get people riled up. Or
Who's she?
Oh man. Or
Marjorie,
like there
what's
was
her name?
Marjorie Taylor Greene. And then there was like this moment a year ago, guys, and my dad had pulled this up the other day. It's hilarious, of like Jasmine Crockett and Marjorie Taylor Greene like going at it at each other, like in the middle of Congress. They're like straight up like throwing insults at each other. They're like, your fake eyelashes. I couldn't hear you over your fake eyelashes or whatever crazy stuff. I'm like, yeah, this is a crazy thing. And it's like that's a weird thing because one of the ladies is black, one of them's white. And they're like, like kind of creating this tension around that stuff too. And yeah, it's a whole show, guys. It's really bad here in the US with that.
Yeah. And then there's Chad saying that it's all the same shit, which I don't completely disagree. Like these people that go ahead, you look at Godsman, Keith.
Well, I was just gonna say too, and the thing that I've continued to realize is that it's like that everywhere.
Yeah. It's a big club and you ain't in it. Because these people who claim to hate each other, like they're going to the same schools, they're hanging out with each other, like they're doing the same sort of stuff. It's a big show. But yeah, I honestly I think there'll be more and more of a push of people that really don't attach themselves to either political party. I think that'll become increasingly popular to do because what?
I'm just laughing at Tamra talking about Carl's stuff, and you guys are just funny. That's all I gotta say.
People be wilding in the chat, but do y'all have anything else before you wrap up? They also create policy that directly benefits their investment. Yeah, that stuff's crazy, and how like they're able to profit off of those things is insane. That's a big old thing in pretty well every country. Like I don't think anyone's really immune to that. Politics is Hollywood for the ugly. That's actually good, right? Because if you think about the people that would be so attracted to fame through the Hollywood route, like that's a pretty good point.
That's fascinating to think about. I mean, you definitely don't get a lot of attractive politicians.
Not really. Like, I don't see.
Not here, dude. We don't have actually.
But did you see what the hell's his name? Clavicular? Did you see that guy's where he's like, I would vote for what's the Newsom, the guy in California? He's like,
okay, yeah, he's a good looking guy.
Yeah, he's a handsome dude. Buddy called him. He's like, of course I'd vote for him, even if I like him less. He's like a total Chad. He mogs him all day. Over JD Vance. He's like, JD Vance is subhuman. He's fat. Like it was hilarious. I will say the clavicular guy, obviously there's some underlying stuff that he went through to become like that obsessed with this stuff, but you can't deny the fact that he's objectively entertaining. Like, and a lot of like young men are really gravitating towards him and then Nick Fuentes a lot because they're just saying, screw it. Like, here I am. They say some crazy shit, of course, but they're really capturing the young audience, and people are ignorant to why that's happening. And a lot of the same people that are saying these things now didn't pay attention to the fact that that's how Trump was going to win the next election when it happened in, what year was that? 16, 17, 18, whatever it was.
Yeah. 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 For narcissists, said Rich Hoyle. Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. Yeah. Definitely a lot of narcissistic behavior. And
yeah. I see. The thing is that another point that was said in this philosophy lecture was that the man who has no desire for power is the person who should have it most.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And that's also another reason why I think that you should be President, Keith. It's because you don't want to
be. No. The reasons that I don't want to be are not those kinds of reasons. The reasons I don't want to be is because I'm not sacrificing my my capitalistic abilities, man. Like, come on.
Very
now.
true. Very true. That's also a big reason why I would never do it as well. And also I can't because I'm Canadian. But there's no world where I would get torched here if I tried to run for office. Are you kidding me?
On both sides.
Yeah, everyone would hate me. There'd be no one that liked me.
Oh, snap.
Is your thing dying?
Yeah.
All good, all good. Yeah, Fuentes resonates with young men who feel forgotten. Yeah, I think that you can't really argue that, right? Because like the proof is in the pudding where they're giving their time and attention. You can say you hate it and you can have valid reasons for hating it, but you got to pay attention to what's going on. It takes so much other people. Well, what do we have anything? Do we have a plan for next week's streams? We'll be back to our normally scheduled programming of Tuesdays and Thursdays, guys. What's up?
Yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12 p.m. Eastern. You know what I'm saying?
That's it. Mad Mike, I'd like you, Ben, just not NFTs. Totally fair, man. Totally fair. You don't have to like me or NFTs, but I appreciate the support. You will not ever have to put that to the test because I will never be running for office.
Yeah.
Never vote for a guy talking to a stick in the park. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome for sure, folks. Yep. Well,
should we wrap it here then?
Another fun one. Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate all y'all tuning in as always. And if you've yet to do so, ensure that your notifications are turned on so that you can come and hang out with us whenever you have the opportunity to do so. The only notifications that you will ever receive for the 400th time, I'm going to say it, will be live streams. So you will not be spammed. We've purposely separated our content. So this will only ever be live streams. And we want you guys to come and chill with us. So make sure to turn on those notifications.
Hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the notifications. And also, if you really want to get the good stuff from us, our thoughts on a weekly basis, you should definitely subscribe to our newsletter. It's totally free right now. You can go to memesandmarkets.com or you'll find it in the description down below. Sign up for the newsletter. We're going to be putting out some really cool thoughts.
Totally. It's going to be free until we decide what we're going to do to make it worth some money, but take advantage of the fact that it's completely free right now. Go over. I'll be posting a piece tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. It's kind of loosely related to some of the stuff that we've talked about today, so I think that if you enjoyed this episode, you'll enjoy that. And Keith's already released some awesome pieces on there. How did you do the? I'll watch a YouTube tutorial, but I posted mine without the picture. Was it when you're posting? Can you just add a picture?
It just does it automatically, brother.
It just did
because of there being content in the post.
It just took it.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I must have had something turned off. I screwed up. But I'll be posting a piece tomorrow. So y'all be able to see that in your inbox tomorrow morning. So make sure to go to memesandmarkets.com. And we're also working on getting the merch set up. So by this time next week, we will likely have the opportunity for you guys to buy mugs. Actually, we should probably order them ourselves to make sure they're not crap before we do that.
That's true.
So give us some more time. I'll order one to me. I'll order one to Keith. I'll try out the black one. You try out the white one. I think that's one you said you wanted, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll see if it's worth giving to you guys, and then we'll make it live.
Most def. Super excited about that.
Cool. Well, we appreciate you guys so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll see all y'all at Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST. Be the light that you want to see, and we will see all y'all next Tuesday.
Stay curious. Peace.
Peace. How do I turn this on, guys? What the heck? My thing's lagging. Why can't I touch anything? Oh my! I'll just cancel it. I guess I'll just turn it on.
Be here.
I can't, bro. I can't change. Riverside's glitching out. Okay, I'll just stop it. No bumper.